Okay, good evening, everybody. Today is Shir on Parshas Beshalach. I would like to discuss, the first part is the element of Shabbos in the mitzvah of eating 3 Seudos, Shalosh Seudos, which is known by us, and then a little bit on Tu bishvat. The mitzvah of Beshalach, the Parsha of Beshalach has a mitzvah which the Yereim counts as a mitzvah, which is to eat 3 Seudos in Shabbos. The Rambam does not count this type of mitzvahs because they are for him only either midrabanon or it's maybe a little bit in the Nevi'im, Divrei Nevi'im as a Oinik Shabbos. So it's and there is no Simchas Shabbos, but for the Yereim it's clearly that it is a mitzvah, that a separate mitzvah of eating 3 Seudos on Shabbos, and he counts it in one of his Tayag mitzvahs from this week's Parsha because it says 3 times, it says Hayoim, 3 times, and we'll read you the Posuk if you remember. V'emer Moshe yichlu Hayoim, ki Shabbos Hayoim la'Hashem, Hayoim lo simtzeuhu basodeh. So since it says 3 times, we learn from this that we have to eat 3 Seudos also on Shabbos. So this is what the Yereim says. So it is separate from Oinik Shabbos. So most of the Meforshim want to explain that it is as a Simchas Shabbos. So the mitzvah of Simchas Shabbos, which the Bahag counts, the Yereim does not count. So we see that probably the Simchas Shabbos is reflected by the eating of 3 Seudos on Shabbos. I would like to just to introduce a little innovative way of why do we have to eat 3 Seudos on Shabbos. So it's clear that the Hayom is choire, it's only in Asmachta Ba'alma. There's no chiyuv d'oraisa to eat 3 Seudos on Shabbos. Even halachically, even with a little bit of fruits, you can be yoytze, and by the Chassidim they say that even learning Torah you yoytze. So there is no chiyuv d'oraisa to eat 3 Seudos, but still, where does this element of the chiyuv to eat 3 Seudos come from? So I think a few years ago I already discussed with you a hakira which seemingly not everybody understands the Hakira. When I spoke about it with some people, they don't understand the Hakira, but I would like to introduce it anyway and to repeat it. It's the element of why is the 3 Seudos that you have to eat on Shabbos, is it an extra Seudah that a person has to eat? So whenever he has a Shabbos, he normally always eat, in the time of the Torah and of Chazal, people ate 2 Seudos. You had the morning Seudah, you came back from davening and you ate, and then you had the evening Seudah. And so normally each day there are 2 Seudos. And the question is the Seudah, the 3rd Seudah, is it a new Seudah that you push into Shabbos, an afternoon Seudah, and then you eat again on Motzei Shabbos? Or is it the Seudah from Motzei Shabbos that you are eating on the Shabbos? And therefore, the idea is that you have to, the Seudah that you were going to eat in the night, you should not eat it in the night when it's already Motzei Shabbos, but you should eat it in the Shabbos afternoon. So again, the Hakira is it an extra Seudah that you have to add? So you have already a planned Seudos for your day, and therefore you are eating a day and the night, and then you have to, in the middle already in the afternoon, an extra Seudah? Or is it no, it is not to eat an extra Seudah, but it is to be magdim, and to make it earlier, the meal that you would eat on Motzei Shabbos, that instead of eating it Motzei Shabbos, you should not eat it Motzei Shabbos, you should eat it on Shabbos afternoon. And there are a lot of rayas that it is not an extra Seudah, because most people tell me when I ask them this question is they tell me it is an extra Seudah, that you have to eat an extra Seudah, 3 Seudos on Shabbos. But there is a lot of rayas that are brought down that it's not like that. It's, for example, in Maseches Bepeya, it says also that if a person has 14 meals, so he has, in other words, meals for the whole week, then he's not considered an oni klape certain things. In the Gemara, the Mishnah in Sukkot brings down, I think, Rabbi Eliezer, who holds that in the beginning, he holds in the Reisha of the Mishnah, he holds that a person is mechuyev to eat 14 Seudos in Sukkot. In the Sukkah, he has to eat 14 Seudos in Sukkot, in the Sukkah. So why 14? For each day he has to eat 2 Seudos. In the Shaches and in the Ma'ariv he has to eat a Seudah in the Sukkah, and that's a chiyuv to eat. Chachomim hold that it's not a chiyuv to eat, it is only reshus. Only the first night, the first kazais is a chiyuv to eat in the sukkah. And then Rabbi Eliezer seemingly, he, according to the Gemara, to the Bavli, he indeed disagrees with himself, he changes his mind, and he agrees with the Chachomim. But originally, Rabbi Eliezer hold that we have to eat 14 Seudos. Now, if you say that Shalosh Seudos is an extra meal, then he should have said 15 Seudos. Why doesn't it say 15 Seudos? We always speak about 14 Seudos. Whenever you will see in Chazal about the chiyuv of giving tzedukah, when chiyuv of sukkah, and other places, we always see that they're speaking about 14 Seudos. And there should always be 15, because 3 for Shabbos, and then 12 for the other days of the week. And so the fact that we are saying that there are 14 Seudos, it seems that there are not more Seudos in the day. In Shabbos, it's just that we are making the Seudah of Motzei Shabbos, we're making it on Shabbos. So it is, the chiyuv is not to eat an extra meal, the chiyuv is to eat the meal that you are going to eat on Motzei Shabbos, eat it on Shabbos. It's a bit of a chidush that is here, but it seems a lot of rayas. I have, on the other hand, a ray not like that, because the Gemara speaks about the isha that she, when the husband is away, how much Seudos is she getting from the Bezdin if she claims that she needs to live. Then for Shabbos, she receives 3, and for the whole week, she receives 2. So you see here a little bit of stira in the whole element of whether or not is it an extra meal or is it just making the meal earlier, legabe Motzei Shabbos. Let's maybe explain why would it be, because that's the general accepted, is to make it earlier. What is the pshat? Now, what is the, like we already explained the element of the Gan Eden, so that the Gan Eden, the creation of the world was for the purpose of the Gan Eden, and the Gan Eden is actually the place where the Rebbeinu Shlolem is dwelling. It's his dwelling place, his resting place, his living place. The Rebbeinu Shlolem wanted to live on this world, and therefore he created the Gan Eden, and since the human beings made the sin, so therefore he could not live anymore here, and then thanks to the Beis Hamikdash, he has the opportunity to live here. And we know that the Rebbeinu Shlolem created the world. He created the world by creating 5 different dimensions. You have the 3-dimensional space, which you call space, the 3 dimensions, Tzofon and Dorim and Mizrach and Ma'arav, and up and down. These are the 3 dimensions with 6 directions. And then you also had to create another dimension, which is called time, which is the past and the future. Okay, so this is in the Sefer Yetzirah. And then you also have another dimension, which is the Ruach, which is basically the quality, as I call it. It is the bad and the good. Okay, because this can also change, and you need that in order to be able to evolve and to make the whole world in a sense of an evolution to get better. So there is the space. So in the space, the Rebbeinu Shlolem chose the Beis Hamikdash, which is chose the place to call it the Beis Hamikdash is the Har HaMoriah. The Har HaMoriah has become the place where the Beis Hamikdash is resting, is there, and Kedusha Shnio Kitchulos Lovoi. So there is still the Kedusha today on that place, and this is where the Kedusha is concentrated, where the Shechina is also highly concentrated. Although the Shechina is within us, and whenever a Yid learns Torah, Chavrusa learns Torah, Bezdin sits, or even 10 Yidden that are in a minyan, the Shechina comes down. But apparently on the Har HaMoriah, the Shechina is even more concentrated. So this is in terms of time, terms of space, sorry. But what about time? Does it also have a Mikdash? And so the theory behind that is that in the Mikdash of time is the Shabbos. So Shabbos is the Beis Hamikdash of time. In other words, like you have space, and in the space you have a particular bordered a place which the Mikdash is. So the Mikdash of the dimension of time is the Shabbos. The Shabbos is the place where there is more Shechina on the world. The question is, how do I know that? How do I know that there is more Shechina on the world? There is, L'choire is not mentioned anywhere that there is more Shechina on the world. So L'choire Faket, there is even more than that's just Shechina. There is even the Kudsho Brichu more on the world. Why do I say that? We all know that every Jew, every human being has a neshama. And what is the neshama of every human being is the Chelek Elokam Mimal. So there is in us, there is a Chelek Elokam Mimal. We have in us we have a part of the Kutchubrichu, mamish of the Kutchubrichu that is in us. And on Shabbos, we all know that there is what we call a neshama yesero. So on Shabbos, there is an extra neshama that comes down on us, which, as Rashi says, gives us appetite. And maybe we'll explain that, but we know for sure that there is an extra neshama that comes. This is specifically for the Yidden, for us, that we have this extra neshama that we receive on Shabbos. And so what does it mean, the extra neshama? In other words, there is more chelek elokam mimal on the world on Shabbos. So again, you see here that the Shabbos is where the mikdosh of the time is. So it is the element of where in the dimension of time there is a time which is dedicated, which is, you can call the Beis HaMikdash of that dimension, where there is more Shechina, where there is more Kutchubrichu on the world. And then when the Shabbos falls, when Shabbos ends, the Neshama Yisera goes away, and therefore there is less of the Shechina in the world. And so if we say that the element that it is a mikdosh, so be'etzem, all the Seudos that you are eating, when you eat a Seudah, it is like you are bringing korban. Why do I say that? You know that the element of washing our hands before Seudah, the Netilas Yodayim that we are doing, is we learn the Netilas Yodayim. How do we learn it? We learn it from the Kiyor. Like the Kohanim had to be magdish their hands before they made the avodah, so too we have to wash our hands in the morning, for example. Why do we wash our hands? Negelwasser, as they call it, 3 times you have to wash on each hand. Why with a netil? Why with a cup? Is we learn it from the kiyur that it is before you're going to daven shachris, it is an avodah, therefore you should wash your hands. And similarly, we also learn the same thing also for the Seudas, the Seudah that you're doing. So when a person eats a Seudah, he has to wash his hands. It's kind of a kedusha. We learn it also. There are some who want to learn that the washing of the hands before the meal and the washing of the hands after the meal is from the post of Venigdashti, that it says there, Loshon Venigdashti, I don't remember anymore how it was exactly the Loshon, but it's a double Loshon of Kedusha. So the element of washing the hands, we learned from a Kedusha that the Kedusha was the same as the Kohanim. So you see here that eating a meal is actually kind of bringing a korban to the Rebbeinu Shlomo. And so now let's maybe go back to the Gan Eden. Now there is a very interesting Loshon in the Gan Eden, and the Loshon in the Gan Eden is every time it says Vayhi Erev, Vayhi Boiker, Yom Rishon, Vayhi Erev, Vayhi Boiker, Yom Sheni. That's a very difficult Loshon. Why? Because it seems to say that the Vayhi Erev, Vayhi Boiker, the moment that the Boiker is there, then the day is finished and it starts a new day. So L'choire, the morning is the changing of a day. And that's not how we Jews live. We live from the evening till the evening, and not from the morning till the morning. And so the Rashbam says mefurash that this is what it means. No, it means that the day starts in the morning and ends in the morning. The next morning starts already a new day. So in other words, Shabbos starts according to the Rashbam, and he says it nearly explicitly. Shabbos Bereshit starts Shabbos morning and ends Sunday morning. And this is a big problem. Of course, because that's at all not how we learn it from. I think that we learn it from Yom Kippur. It says mefurash me'erev ad erev, but we don't learn for Shabbos like that. And the Ibn Ezra, if you remember, I already spoke about that. The Ibn Ezra had a dream when he was living in England that there was a sefer in his house where he was resting, where he was sleeping, that had a sefer that said to the Jews to be mechal Shabbos. And he received a letter from the Shabbos. Shabbos is the Geras Shabbos. He received a letter from the Shabbos that told him that have to be careful, and there is a book there. And he looked for the book, and he wanted to burn. He found the book, and they claimed that it was his Rashbam, because the Rashbam says that the Shabbos starts in the Shabbos morning and ends. So people would be Machal Shabbos on Friday night, and so this cannot be the case. And so in a lot of prints of the Mikroes Gedolos, they do not print the Rashbam. So you will see that they will remove it in a few versions of the Mikroe Kodesh. They removed it and they put it back in. I don't know exactly what is the latest status on that, but I know that in Galad they put Tipex, so they erased it. This part of the Rashbam. Because it's a problem. It's a problem of how can he says that the Shabbos Bereshit starts from the Shabbos morning. Now, in today we have already very nice achronim that explain that when Klal Yisrael, before they became Klal Yisrael, the Goyim, their day starts in the morning and ends in the morning. But since we came out of Mitzrayim, our calendar changed, and the day starts in the night and ends in the night. And so therefore, there's not a stira. Now we have the Shabbos that starts in Friday night and ends up Motzei Shabbos. But originally in the Gan Eden, the Shabbos Gan Eden, as I call it starts in the morning and ends in the next morning. So be'etzem, according to that pshat, there are two different Shabbosos. So you have the Shabbos that we have to keep, which is the Shabbos that starts Friday night till Motzei Shabbos. But there is also a Shabbos which actually starts on the Shabbos morning and ends on the Sunday morning, which we can call it the Shabbos Gan Eden. This is the original Shabbos that existed before we became Klal Yisrael. So one could say the following, that since it is a chiyuv to eat on Shabbos, and all the eating is be'etzem a korban, it's to bring a korban, and the eating is a korban, that's why we have to wash our hands like a kohen does, and there is a lot more to speak about that, but let's keep it simple today. And since the idea is to eating a Seudos is like eating a korban, so we know that there is an issur to eat a korban outside of the borders of the Beis Hamikdash of Yerushalayim. If it's a Kochim Kalim, a Shlomim, and Kochim Kedoshim, a Chatos, and an Osham, you have to eat inside of the walls of the Azorah and the Shalom Tzibur. So you have to eat them inside of the Azorah, and then the rest you can eat outside, but inside of Yerushalayim. So you have borders, you're not allowed to eat outside. Similarly, the meals of Shabbos, one is not allowed to eat outside of the borders of Shabbos. Therefore, he has to eat 3 Seudos. So if he eats 3 Seudos, he eats them inside. Why 3 Seudos? Only 2 Seudos, Friday night and Shabbos day. It is also the Seudah of Motzei Shabbos, which is the Seudah of Shabbos of the Shabbos Gan Eden. So you also have to eat legabe the Shabbos Gan Eden. You also have to eat the Seudah. And so Chazal said the Seudah for Motzei Shabbos, you should eat it in the Shabbos. Why? So that you can eat all the Seudos inside the walls, the walls of time in the Shabbos. Which Shabbos? The Shabbos that we know today, our Shabbos from Olam Hazeh, from this world. But the Shabbos Gan Eden, it is the Shabbos which starts Friday, the Shabbos morning, and ends on Sunday night. So we are eating all the Seudos of the Shabbos, we have to eat into 124 hours, and therefore you have to eat the one from Motzei Shabbos also inside of the Shabbos afternoon. The question is, so what do we do, Taka, on the Shabbos Gan Eden? We still have a night, and therefore comes the Melava Malka, which is indeed a Kabbalistic meal, and you light even the candles like a mamish, a Shabbos meal. Some people light candles, 2 candles, like as if it would be Friday night, and they also eat a meal, chamin. So there is the inyan here, is to eat a Seudah also on the Motzei Shabbos, which might be the Shabbos according to the Gan Eden, and might even be the Shabbos Ilachis Hayomim, where we will come back maybe to the original timing. But this I don't know. I don't have any proof if it's going to go back or not. But in any case, this can explain a little bit why we have to eat the 3 Seudos on Shabbos, and why does Rab Chitke, which is a Tana in Gemara in Shabbos, said that you have to eat 4 Seudos on Shabbos, 1 in the Friday night, but that's not counted, and you have to eat 3 Seudos in the day of Shabbos. It's because the overlap between those 2 Shabbosos, the middle part, all of them, you have to eat both. You have to eat the 3 meals that you have to eat. You should eat them in the middle part, which is the overlapping period of between the Shabbos that we have now and the Shabbos that used to be, and that is more in the Shabbos in heaven, which is also the Shabbos in the Beis Hamikdash. All the days in the Beis Hamikdash starts in the morning and ends in the morning. If you remember all the Kodshim, it's always you have to eat Shnei Yom v'Yom Lailo Echot or Shnei Yomim v'Lailo. So Shnei Yom Lailo Echot or Yom Echot v'Lailo Echot. It always starts in the morning and ends in the next morning. So there in the Beis Hamikdash, it is like still in the Gan Eden that the day starts in the morning. So this can explain the element of eating the Seudos in the Shabbos. In why we need to eat them in the Shabbos is as if you otherwise eating outside of the Shabbos would be like eating kochim outside of the Beis HaMikdash. We can continue on and understanding why do we have to eat, what is helping the eating, but it's the main idea behind that is that eating is for the Rebbeinu Shloim also considered an oinik. So maybe the creation of human beings was so that the Rebbeinu Shloim can participate in our Tanuk, because that's clear that B'tzorosam lo yitzor, that when Klal Yisrael is in Tsar, the Rebbeinu Shloim is in Tsar. That means that when we are not in Tsar, but we are B'simcha, then the Rebbeinu Shloim is B'simcha. When we are in a Tainuk, then the Rebbeinu Shloim is B'tanuk. So Be'etzem, it is kind of, the idea is that on Shabbos, there is an Neshama Yisera that we should have more appetite so that the Rebbeinu Shloim can eat with us. So when we eat Tanugim, we're eating Barburim, Uslov, Vedogim, when we eat those Geschmacke things, the Rebbeinu Shloim also has kind of an anor. There is in the Kabbalistic Sforim that the oine, that the husband is mekayim with a woman, and the Tanuk with his wife, the Tanuk that he has on this world is also the Tanuk that is shared in the higher worlds. So there is this element of Tanuk which is shared between what we enjoy here, the Rebbeinu Shloim enjoys with us, if it is a Tanuk shel Simcha, of course. And so this can explain a little bit also the idea that we should eat and enjoy Shabbos, because that's the moment when there is more Shechina in order for the Shechina also to enjoy with us. So that explains the element of the 3 Seudos that has to be eaten on Shabbos, as the Seudah is a korban for the Mikdash, and the Shabbos is a Mikdash of time, is within the borders of time. And when you eat a Seudah, it is as if you are eating a korban, and you have to eat it inside the place, like you also have to eat it inside of time. And you eat 3 Seudos, as it is the Seudah for Motzei Shabbos that you have to eat earlier. Like we have rayas from a few places in the Mishnah, and that there are 14 Seudos in a week, not 15, meaning that the Motzei Shabbos Seudah you eat on Shabbos. So this is the explanation of the 3 Shalosh Seudos, which I wanted to bring today. The last part is just on Tu Bishvat. There is Tu Bishvat is Rosh Hashanah le'ilonos. There is kind of a misconception. People think that it means that the trees are being done. So there is a din on this day of Tu Bishvat on the trees. It's a mistake, of course, that many of you probably know it, that it is a mistake. There is no din on Tu Bishvat on the trees. There is the Hasidic way of seeing it, is that today, tonight, the Tu Bishvat is the day that the esrog of next Sukkot will be done, if we will have a nice esrog or not. But that's already, as we say, Hasidic Mamorim. In general, the Gemara clearly does not say that Tu Bishvat is Rosh Hashanah as a din. The Rosh Hashanah for the Ilonos is on Atzeres, it's Shavuos, and not on Tu Bishvat. So it was already a long time ago, or it's going to be a long time ahead of us. Probably it's going to be a long time ahead of us, but it's not on Tu Bishvat. So what does it mean that Tu Bishvat is Rosh Hashanah le'ilonos? It's just legabe 3 things, which is legabe meiser. So as we know that you're not allowed to take meiser mishono lechaverto, that mishono leshono, you cannot take, if you take apples from 2000, from Tushim Pei Aleph, and you take apples from Tushim Pei Beis, then you cannot take meiser from Tushim Pei Beis, and this meiser should also go on the tevel of Tushim Pei Aleph. But you have to take it from the same year. You cannot take from one year to another. And so therefore we need to know when is the year, when is the border of the year. And so Tu Bishvat is the border of the year. Similarly, if you plant something, you sometimes you can use to know if it's orla, you need to wait 3 years. So the question is, how do you define the 3 years? It is not on the day that you planted it, but it is how many Rosh Hashanahs have passed. So by the beginning, you can use Rosh Hashanah Netiyos, which is Tishri. But sometimes you can also say if it was before Tu Bishvat, you can use the Tu Bishvat as being a whole year already, and therefore you can count already Orle a bit less, because you can use the Tu Bishvat le'ilonos, which is the Rosh Hashanah le'ilonos. So in order to count an extra year, and you can eat the fruits a little bit quicker. So depending, it's quite complicated. I already gave once a share about that. I realize that it's very complicated how it works, but there are dinim legabe orle that the Tu Bishvat is the year that once it passed Tu Bishvat, then you can start to eat the fruits of the tree. And then there is another thing, legabe Shmita, not clear whether or not there is legabe Shmita if Tishri is the Rosh Hashanah or it is Tu Bishvat, but that's already machlokes in the Achronim, and even how to learn in the Rambam. If by Shmita also the Tu Bishvat is for the Ilonois, for the Peres or Ilonois, if the Tu Bishvat or it is the Rosh Chodesh Tishri. Whatever it is, even if you say that it is Tu Bishvat is kind of Rosh Hashanah, it is not even true, because the truth is that even the Tu Bishvat means that it was the Rosh Chodesh Tishri. So it is still Rosh Chodesh Tishri is the Rosh Hashanah. The reason why we waiting till Tu Bishvat is because in the tree there is still the water from the rains that fell before Rosh Chodesh Tishri. So it takes time for the water to go up all the way to the tree and in all the different fruits. And so all the humidity, the waters that are still inside the tree are still from last year. And when do we know that this tree is already taking the water from the rains that fell after Rosh Hashanah, after Rosh Chodesh Tishri? When do we know that? On Tu Bishvat. Tu Bishvat is the moment that you know for sure that all the water in the trees are ready from the new rain. But Be'etzem, it is Rosh Chodesh Tishri, is the Rosh Hashanah for the trees. But it's still, because we are still using the water from last year, that's why Tu Bishvat became kind of a calculated, it's botanic Rosh Hashanah. It's a calculated Rosh Hashanah, but it's not the real Rosh Hashanah. The real Rosh Hashanah is always Tishri, and the Tu Bishvat is only a botanical exercise to know when am I sure that the tree is now, as they say, sucking the liquid, the raindrops, and getting it up into its leaves and fruits. So this is what is the Tu Bishvat. Now, just to explain you that there is, why do we make it a bit of a Yom Tov? I mean, we're not going to say Tachanun, and we are actually, where does it come from? And some by the Chassidim, they make it a little bit of, I don't know if they go with the Streimel, but there is a bit of a Yom Tov behind that. And it starts actually, there's a tshuva from the Maharam Mirottenburg. So the tshuva Maharam Mirottenburg, it's a very interesting, for those who learned Daf Hayomi, it was mamash of the Daf of yesterday. They asked the Maharam Mirottenburg, are we allowed to make tainis on Tu Bishvat? So they wanted to make a Sheni, Chamishi, and Sheni a tainis, a fasting day. Are we allowed to make it? And the first tainis fell on Tu Bishvat. And so they asked them the question, are we allowed to do it? So the Maharam Mirottenburg says, because it says in the Mishnah, Arbo Rosh Hashonim, and one of the Arbo Rosh Hashonim is the Tu Bishvat. So it's Betzem, it's not a Rosh Hashanah. But since it is mentioned in the Mishnah together with the other Rosh Hashanahs, like the Rosh Hashanah that we have, which is a Yom Tov, and since on those days we are not allowed to fast, and so therefore we also not allowed to fast on Tu Bishvat. So this is a Chiddush Maharam Mirottenburg. He learns from a Mishnah, and he learns because in the Mishnah it says all the four together, therefore we should not fast. And what is his raya? His raya is from this the daf from today, actually, from the daf of today, where the Gemara says that how do we know that Shmita is Bisman Hazeh is only the Rabbanon? So the Gemara says, because it says in the Mamar from Rabbi Yochanan that he says that Eser Netiyos and Arova and Nisuch HaMayim are Lochol Moesh Misinai. So there are three things which are Lochol Moesh Misinai. And since he says these three things in one sentence, which are the three things? Eser Netiyos, which is a din in the Tosefes of Shemitah, and Arova, which we do on Sukkos, and Nisuch HaMayim, which we do on Sukkos. So these three things are Lochol Moesh Misinai. And since two of those three are only in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, and because when there is no Beis Hamikdash, there is no Nisuch HaMayim, and so too, Eser Netiyos, which is a din in Shemitah, is only on Shemitah, only on the time when there is a Beis Hamikdash. And so from one sentence, since there are three things in one sentence, if one of them we can learn, we can make kind of a hekesh, since it is written together in one sentence, we can learn one thing from another, even if it's not in the posuk, but it is a mama chazal. So we can learn from a mama chazal also why did the chazal put it in one sentence. So we are learning from the other words, we are learning to this word. We can also make kind of limudim, and so therefore he explains. So he does his own limud. He says that since in Rosh Hashanah it says Arba Rosh Hashonim Heim, and one of them is Tu B'Shvat, so we learn that since the Rosh Hashanah is not allowed to fast, so Tu B'Shvat is also not allowed to fast. It's a very, very interesting, intriguing Marami Rothenburg, and this is the makor for the inyan of why it has still kind of a Yom Tov atmosphere, because of this tshuva that Marami Rothenburg has brought, and this is on this day's Daf Yomi. It's Siyata Dishmaya, as they say. So I will just summarize very quickly. So we saw the reason that the mitzvah to this week's parsha is to eat 3 Seudos on Shabbos, that it is, according to the Reim, it's one of the mitzvahs asiyah of the Taryag mitzvahs. It's kedai to know that. We also saw that the idea behind that is maybe because Shabbos is the Beis Hamikdash of the time dimension, and so therefore all the Seudos that you eat, you have to eat them inside of the time. And there are 3 Seudos because you have the Shabbos, which start from Friday night till Motzei Shabbos, but you also have the Shabbos Gan Eden, which starts from Shabbos morning till Sunday morning. So all the 3 Seudos, you have to eat them in Shabbos in order for not to eat them outside. And this is the idea, like not eating kochim outside of the Beis Hamikdash. And we saw that the eating of a Seudah is like a korban. That's why we need to wash our hands. The washing of the hands is also schach truma, but that means also because the whole truma was also the element of eating truma is also kind of an avoider. And so on our level, eating a meal is also kind of an avoider, especially when it is an avoider. It's a oinik tanuk shel simch mitzvah, like eating on Shabbos. And so therefore you have to eat it in the Shabbos. And we also explained that the Tu B'Shvat is the etzem, it's Rosh Hashanah of Tu B'Shvat is Rosh Hashanah of Tishri, but it's only botanically that it is still Tu B'Shvat, because there's still water in the trees that are from the rains from before Rosh Hashanah, and therefore it's still counted as the previous year. But on Tu B'Shvat, it's all new, fresh rain that fell after Rosh Hashanah, and so therefore it's considered also Rosh Hashanah. And we said that there is nothing, no din in the Rosh Hashanah, nothing happens in heaven on Rosh Hashanah. It is only legabe the dinim of Meiser, of Orle, and Machlokes on Shemitah as well. However, we said that there is still an inyan of Yom Tov in Tu B'Shvat, and that inyan is that we're not allowed to fast on that day, and we're not going to say Tachnun, because of it's written in one Mishnah, Arbo Rosh Hashonim Heim, at the Marami Rothenburg learns that we can learn from the fact that it's written in one Mishnah, that we can learn from the other words, the other Yom Rosh Hashanah, that like in Rosh Hashanah we can't fast, therefore also on Tu B'Shvat we don't fast, since we learn it like the Haloch Lomesh Mitzena from Eser Netiris, Arova, and Isuch HaMayim, that we learn that only in the time when the Beis Hamikdash is Kaim, but if the Beis Hamikdash is not Kaim, also the Shemitah is only the Rabbono. Any questions? Was it clear? I will stop the recording.